Top 5 most shockingly huge kidnapping ransoms. A person's life is precious and priceless, and no amount of money can quantify its value. But for kidnapping syndicates, engaging in abduction is a money-spinning business in which millions of dollars or pounds are at stake. And for these kidnapping victims, no amount of money is shockingly huge in exchange for their freedom from illegal captivity. Number 5. Charles A. Lockwood. British businessman Charles Lockwood was twice abducted and released that cost his family a total of $12 million for him to come home alive. The director of Acro Steel in Britain and the Argentine-based Roberts Finance Company became a favorite target of Argentina's Marxist guerrillas, called People's Revolutionary Army. Lockwood was first kidnapped on June 6, 1973, when he was snatched by 6 guerrilla group members. Held captive for 54 days, Lockwood was finally released after negotiations to lower the ransom money from $7.5 to $2 million succeeded. However, 2 years later, on July 31, 1975, the businessman was again kidnapped by PRA members disguised as railroad workers. They stopped his car at a railroad crossing near his home and injured his driver and bodyguards in a brief fight. For Lockwood's second captivity, the guerrilla members demanded $10 million. On August 31st, Argentine police rescued Lockwood after a battle that killed 4 of his captors. In one interview, Lockwood disclosed that the abductors demanded money to be used for procuring weapons for a possible civil war in Argentina. Number 4. Victor E. Samuelson. It took $14.2 million for Victor E. Samuelson to escape from an execution threat after getting kidnapped by Argentine guerrillas of the Marxist People's Revolutionary Army in 1974. Samuelson, a refinery manager of U.S. oil company Exxon, was kidnapped at gunpoint at the company's club restaurant on December 6, 1973. Initially, the captors demanded a $10 million ransom for Samuelson's safe release to be paid in the form of food, clothing, and construction materials for Argentina's poorest districts. For the guerrilla group, the money was a partial reimbursement to the Argentine people for Exxon's long years of imperialist exploitation of the country's riches. Then, the abductors demand $4.2 million more in supplies for flood victims. Exxon gave in to their demands, but problems with logistics and distributing the goods made the guerrilla leaders accept the $14.2 million ransom in cash on March 11, 1974. Samuelson was finally released on April 29, 1974, and left at once for the U.S. It said that the $14.2 million ransom was enough to equip and maintain around 1,500 guerrilla fighters for more than a year. Number 3. George and Juan Bourne kidnapping $60 million. Born to one of Argentina's wealthiest and most influential families, brothers George and Juan Bourne inevitably became the perfect kidnapping targets of the left-wing Montoneros guerrilla group on September 19, 1974. As they were driving through the La Lucia suburb in Buenos Aires, they were seized by guerrilla members disguised as policemen and telephone workers, while their driver and a business associate were shot to death. The top honchos of the family-owned multinational company Bung & Bourne that engages in grain, metal, pharmaceutical, and textile businesses were valued by the kidnappers at $64 million in exchange for their freedom. Said to be the largest ransom in history at that time, the money was taken from the company's treasury. On June 21, 1975, the older George was released after the guerrillas held a clandestine press conference, while the younger Juan was freed earlier at an undisclosed location. After the incident, Bung & Bourne relocated its office to Sao Paulo, Brazil, as well as their families. Number 2. Walter Kwok. Being an heir of the founder and owner of one of Hong Kong's largest property developers makes one a magnet for criminal activities, and Walter Kwok's multi-million ransomed abduction in 1997 was a perfect, albeit notorious, example. When Kwok's father, Kwok Tak Seng, died in 1990, Kwok and his 2 brothers inherited the family business Sun Hung Kai Properties. As the eldest son, Kwok assumed the role as chairman and CEO. 7 years into the position, Kwok was the target of Cheung Se-kyung, a notorious Chinese gangster also known as Big Spender, who abducted him on September 30, 1997. For 4 days, Kwok was placed in a wooden container, blindfolded, and fed by his captor with regular meals of roast pork and rice until his demanded ransom was paid. Kwok's wife Wendy led the negotiation and agreed to pay the ransom worth $77 million packed inside 20 large carrier bags. Kwok was released 7 days after captivity without police intervention, traumatized by his abduction. Kwok relinquished his executive duties to his brothers, while Big Spender was captured in Guangzhou, China, and executed in December 1998. Number 1. Victor Lee. In the late 1990s, Hong Kong's high-profile families were often targets for kidnappings. Victor Lee's family was no exception, for Victor himself was an intended target. Of course, who else could pull off such notoriety but Cheung Se-kyung, aka Big Spender, Hong Kong's most notorious king of the criminal underworld. On May 23, 1996, heavily armed Cheung and his accomplices deliberately kidnapped Victor, the son of shipping billionaire Li Ka-shing, as he returned home from work. Cheung kidnapped the son, not the father, because he knew that only the patriarch could right away supply the $258.5 million ransom money he demanded. During his overnight captivity, Victor was handcuffed, tied up, his mouth sealed with heavy-duty adhesive, blindfolded with bandages, and his feet bound with steel chains. The most wanted kidnapper then brazenly showed up at the Lee home to collect the ransom money, but Li Ka-shing only had a little more than half the amount in cash. In the end, Cheung got $134 million, probably the biggest ransom paid anywhere in the world. But crime does pay, and Cheung was executed in 1988 in China. We're posting more interesting videos every single day, so please subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.